Did you want to go ahead?
It's a pleasure to have you all here today. My name is Amanda Cole. I am the Executive Director of Plexus, the LGBT and Allied Chamber of Commerce, and also our Education Foundation. This is our first Resource by Plexus event, and I cannot tell you how amazing it is to be in this space and how honored I am to have the leadership of Dan, Aaron, and Jackie. I hope that what you see today is a good example of how at Plexus, we say there's no Plexus without you, not only just because of the spelling, but also because we build our programs in response to the needs of our community, the LGBT and allied community. And what you'll see with Sara being here today, we go to our deep bench of members and talent in order to put on these kinds of programs. So today is being recorded and we'll make sure that we send it around to you. Just a bit of housekeeping. You might notice that some of us have our pronouns in our display name. This is a really great way to make communication efficient and inclusive. So just in case you want to give it a go, if you hover over your image, those 3 dots, it says rename. That's where you can put in your pronouns. You don't have to, but it takes the guessing game out of communicating and getting to know folks. And I'll be joining Resource on the 29th of March to do exactly this, to just do a pronoun 101. So with that, I'm gonna turn my camera off. I'm gonna soak it in and get into my authentic self. And Jackie, you're up next.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Welcome everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am Jackie the Insurance Girl. I'm with Liberty Mutual Insurance and my pronouns are she, hers. And today I'm so excited to introduce Resource by Plexus. For those of you who are new to Plexus, Plexus is the LGBT and Allied Chamber of Commerce here in Cleveland. Not all cities have one, so we're really lucky to be one. And in addition to connecting the queer and ally business owners with the communities around them, we provide equity and inclusion training for employee groups, corporations. We certify LGBT-owned businesses to help them be more competitive in larger markets and just kind of have a better competitive advantage when they're competing against other companies that are not minority owned. Today, with the launch of Resource, Plexus will be able to provide real estate professionals in Ohio, queer and ally, with training opportunities, industry-specific equity and inclusion information, and additional resources to help them make authentic connections with more people in the area and serve a more diverse group of clients and future homeowners. I'm excited to be launching today's Lunch and Learn, The Power of Authenticity, with Dan Tyson of Dan Tyson of Remax Edge and Aaron Jeggles of PuroClean in Avon Lake. At a time where the real estate industry is really focused on helping minority groups, people of color, and those without prior access to resources attain their dreams of being homeowners. In a moment, I'm going to hand this over to the fabulous Dan Tyson to introduce and thank some of our dignitaries and sponsors for today. But I wanted to just remind everyone real quick that we'll be doing some giveaways at the end. So once Sara's presentation is over, we have a link to a free discovery call with her, which is really amazing. And after you hear her talk, you're not going to want to miss it. And then a couple other little fun giveaways that we're going to be able to gift to some people for joining. So Dan, if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Jackie. Again, Dan Tyson, he, him, his. And I work here at Remax in Greater Cleveland. We have some dignitaries in the room I just want to give a shout out to. It's like Hollywood squares in here. There's so many bigwigs. So without further ado, we have my good friend, Candace Eberhardt, the 2022 president of the Akron Cleveland Association of Realtors. We have Carly Sablotny. She's the 2022 Women's Council of Realtors president-elect. We have, I don't know if Katie's in here yet, but she'll pop in. She's a director at the Akron Cleveland Board of Realtors. I don't know if Brian Schultz is in here yet, but he's the board president of the Plexus Education Foundation. We also have Jeanette Wright, who might pop in. She's with the Ohio Realtors Board of Directors. Let's see, and of course, the fabulous Amanda Cole, our executive director of Plexus, the Chamber LGBT and Allied Chamber of Commerce. And my dear friend, Courtney DeMarco is here. She's a director at the Akron Cleveland Association of Realtors. She's the Women's Council of Realtors membership director and sits on the state governing board. If you know Courtney, she's everywhere. So We're so lucky to have Courtney here, and Fairway actually is our first sponsor. So we just appreciate your support, Courtney, and thank you so much. Maybe tell us a little bit about why folks are choosing Fairway.
Dan, thank you so much. That was a great introduction. So happy to be here. I think the reason that a lot of folks choose Fairway is because Fairway is a lender for everyone. Our purpose and passion is home for all. And so that means that we can help lower credit scores, and we can also help people with lower loan amounts. A lot of lenders can't because their fees are so high, they can't finance lower loan amounts because they go into what's called a high cost loan. So we can do lower loan amounts, lower credit scores, and we are #1 lender in the state of Ohio for down payment assistance. So we are just out here moving and grooving and trying to turn everybody into a homeowner, because everybody deserves to have the right of home ownership, the American dream. So thank you. And I can't wait to get to meet all of you even more.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Next, we're going to hear from Erin Jagels. Erin, take it away.
Thanks, guys. Thanks again, Courtney. And just so you guys know, since I get to be our little chat person today, thank you again to Fairway and to Sara. And Fairway is our sponsor, and Sara being here. For those of you who have not completely absorbed every facet of Zoom over the last 2 years, just to give you a little reminder that you can click the little icons in the chat to save the chat. So we're going to drop links in for a lot of the things we talk about, but definitely check out Fairway's page. Please take a peek at the Resource by Plexus Facebook page. And you can save that chat at the end and get all of that info there. So I just wanted to make sure you guys had that available. And I will make sure all the stuff that you're looking for is in there as we have our call today. So it is my distinct privilege and pleasure to introduce Sara Szabó today. She is not only a wonderful personal life coach to myself, but also an amazing friend. And just the benefit of knowing her in a personal and a professional space is just lovely. So I get to read her bio to you all today. And like I said, it's more of a privilege and a pleasure than anything else. So for more than a decade, Sara Szabó has been an invaluable resource for people seeking to discover and overcome personal obstacles that prevent them from reaching their full potential in both life and in business. Through her own 20-year entrepreneurial journey of business building and consulting, she understands small business and how important it is to be profitable in those small businesses. Her coaching is deep and insightful, which I can attest to from personal experience, and is honest. She has an honest and sincere nature, which I can completely agree with. She's lovely. Her #1 goal is to help professionals identify and overcome the barriers that are preventing them from achieving greater success, and along with that, increased income. So without further ado, let's give Sara a little round of applause. So welcome, Sara. Thank you.
Thank you. I could not be more honored to be asked to be here. And it's because you all know me so well. I feel like I've never been more invited to be myself in a space than today on this particular event. So thank you all for having me here and for coming. I'm going to share my screen before we officially get going, but I do need to say a shout out to everyone who I know personally that's on the call. I saw all of your names come in and I appreciate you being here. All right. So I am a life and business coach. And what that means is that I take life coaching techniques and apply them to business owners. And this is unique and also very hybrid. So it's not two separate lanes that I jump between. Instead, it's a merged skill set. And you'll see that throughout today's call because we're talking about our lives, but we're applying it to our businesses. And I wanted to, come on, click. My clicks are slow, 1 second. It started on the last slide, that's why I wouldn't click. Okay, here we go. So this is the first slide. I wanted to kick off by talking about in the authenticity as a power move for your business. We tend to look at the end result. We tend to look at the authentic person across the room from us and say, that's authentic. But the truth is that authentic decisions along the way are how they got there. So I wanted to take you all the way back and show you some of my more authentic decisions
as we build up to your power moves for your business. So this is an actual photo of me from the fall of 2010. I was in Zion National Park, and we had just hiked to the top of something, you know, wildly elevated. And I had just gotten the tattoo you see on my arm. I had been told by countless people not to do it, that it was a bad idea. I was told that it would keep me from getting jobs in the future. I was told many things about what I should or should not do, and I got the tattoo anyway. And I was connecting my BlackBerry to Verizon at the top of this mountain because I had a crush on a girl that I had met on Twitter who lived in Europe, who I was wanting to write to. Now, think for a second about the number of people that advised me against that, about the number of people who thought they knew better for my life and thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy, to be fair. And we're like, this just isn't gonna work. Like, how will it work? And these are the authentic decisions we make. When we decide we're going to take a risk, when we decide that we're going to do something that we think is right for us, or at least worth finding out if it's right for us, those are the authentic decisions along the way that take us there. So in the fall of 2013, we took this picture at our wedding. In another authentic decision, we did not have our families there. This was the whole wedding. It was the officiant, the two of us, the photographer, and exactly 2 friends. And again, the number of people that told me that was a bad decision definitely tallied up. I was told that not having my mother there was a horrible thing to do. We didn't have our sisters there. But you know what? We did what was right for us, full stop. We did what was right for us. And those are the authentic decisions that you make along the way. And in terms of how it worked out for the 2 girls on Twitter, this is us with our baby in Europe on our first trip internationally as a family of 3, and all is going well. So you may be asking, okay, fine. Oh, yeah, there's my little girl making her authentic decisions I forgot I had that in there, in her fashion sense every day with our messy kitchen in the back. I wouldn't edit that out for a second. I trust you guys too much to see my true self. You might be thinking, how does this work at the office? All right. So let's look a little bit behind the curtain at my life. I am a dance teacher as well as a coach. And in the summer of 2005, everyone told me not to open a dance studio. All the dance teachers I knew thought that the overhead would be too high and that it was unnecessary. I had grown up dancing in a living room, a dining room, and they thought that worked for everybody. But I made the authentic decision to bring a level of professionalism to what I wanted in my dance teaching career, because I genuinely thought that there were dancers out there looking for professionalism, that didn't want to dance in a dining room and that wanted to get big trophies, go big places, use words like nationals. And it was only 4 years later that in the spring of 2009, one of those professionally focused dancers and I brought home this trophy and continued to do so. So it's interesting when you see the end result, it's easy to say, oh yeah, she's living her best life. But the times that we fork in the road and head in the direction of living our best life is when everyone tells us not to. And in those moments, we either listen because we think inside that they're right, and they might be, but we decide that. Or we don't listen because we think inside that we're right and we're the one that decides that. So I just thought I'd give you a little glimpse into some of the more authentic decisions in my life before we dive into the topic. So the topic for today is the power move of authenticity for your business, because it can be incredible for lighting up a brand, lighting up a stream of revenue, a customer base, and yet it seems really elusive. What is this authenticity everybody's talking about, and how exactly are we supposed to step into our own? So what do they mean by authentic or inauthentic? First of all, there's a they here. There's other people looking in on us and deciding if they think we're being authentic. So that's the first problem, right? The others are deciding. And what I think they actually mean by it is like, are you being an original or an unoriginal copy of yourself? And that makes no sense to me because we are ourselves. We are ourselves, and nobody on the outside is a qualified judge to tell us otherwise. So this definition doesn't work for me. I feel like this is what culture is using the word to mean, and I want to dig deeper and empower you guys with some more resonant definitions of the word authentic so that we can build off of those. So just right now, shed the idea that when someone says be authentic, they have the right to tell you if you're an original version of yourself, because they don't. Authentic to me means true, and it represents truth. And inauthentic means false and represents fiction. And what's important here is that we know what's true for us and we know what's false for us. So now we can be the authentic judge to say, yes, this is true. Yeah, it's true that this girl on Twitter is worth my time. It's true that the risk of opening the dance studio is something that I want to do. That's true for me. Okay. What happens when we interact with people from an authentic position is that they experience us. Now that's where they're in their right to form a decision and voice it. When we interact with them, they feel something from us. And when we interact authentically, when we show up in our truth, they receive honesty and they can feel that honesty. And they actually stand up and say, or they walk away and say, yeah, I really felt good about that, because they didn't feel like there was any deceit happening. When we show up in a way that seems false or like there's fiction involved, other people can feel that. And when they feel it, they don't, it's not always intentional. Sometimes it's just a, kind of a jumble of everything, but they kind of feel like they can't trust it and maybe they might be being deceived. And when we're talking about our businesses, this is a big deal. It's a really big deal that our brands can be trusted. And the way that we develop a brand that can be trusted is by standing in our truth as a person and resonating that through. So what we've established so far is that this is not about being original or unoriginal, and nobody else gets to decide. But the people who we interact with do get to decide how they feel about interacting with us. And the more true and honest we can be to ourselves, the more we can inspire that feeling of honesty with them. All right. So I worked in jewelry for 6 years. It was high school and early college. I absolutely loved it. And so the first thing that came to my mind when I was building a talk on authenticity was diamonds. Diamonds refract light more than other things, more than glass, more than other stones, which means that when we look into them, we get this brilliant array of more light than went in. That is an intrinsic value. That is what diamonds do, whether they want to or not. That is what diamonds are. And I want you guys to realize that in order to stand in our truth and in our honesty, we need to see our own intrinsic values. They are already there. We don't have to go ask anyone what they see. We don't have to go hunting around for, what am I good at? We know. We just have to be who we are and own our own intrinsic values. And for diamonds, that is refracting light. So when you think about yourself, you want to think about, when I interact with other people, what multiplies? For diamonds, it's light. It's beautiful. When you interact with other people, for me, it's confidence. When I interact with other people, they tend to tell me afterwards they feel more confident about themselves, or they feel more seen, or they feel more heard. Now, this is just for me, right? You show up as your own diamond with your own intrinsic qualities, but I want you to look in and think, what multiplies when I'm around? And start to own those as intrinsic values for yourself. Nobody else is a quality judge of your own intrinsic value. You get to decide it, all right? And that brings us to emeralds, because diamonds have this brilliance to them where they're so gorgeous and they refract so much light, but as soon as there's a flaw, the industry takes the value down. But emeralds are the opposite, okay? When emeralds have what we call inclusions, because we've branded around the word imperfection and flaw, and now they're called inclusions, the value goes up. And that's because emeralds, when they're mined from the actual ground, instead of grown in a lab, like the one you see on the far left of the screen that's grown in a lab, and the other two that have like a glow about them, and it looks like there's a universe inside them that we can climb into and explore, those are flaws, those are imperfections. That's the story of that stone's life. They're different in every single emerald. Every single natural emerald has its own inclusions, its own color, its own story. And emeralds get their value from being unique. So we also want to look at the imperfections in our life and the story that our life tells and embrace it. Embrace what others might see as flaws, and instead see them as inclusions, things that are included in our story, included in our life, that are part of us, and realize that that also raises value. Okay, so there's things that we multiply in the presence of others, and there's things that we bring, that we include, that we show up as, that others do see value and beauty in. Okay, notice that the one on the left being lab created has no inclusions. It has no story. It is a completely lab created stone, which is beautiful in its color and in its format, but it doesn't have the texture. And I, for one, would pay more for a mined grown emerald because I feel like I can get to know it. It's an individual. And these are values that I think are easier to see in stones than they are to see in ourselves. So I hope that helped you kind of look around, finding kind of the gravity there. Which brings us to Oprah. When Oprah was young in her career, she said she wanted to be Barbara Walters. So she was going for perfection, right? So she was trying to do everything right the way other people defined it. Because young in our lives, that's kind of the best we've got to work on sometimes. And she was reading this list of country names on air, complicated country names, things that were hard for her to pronounce. So she was thinking really carefully about each syllable, each letter, and trying to pronounce it accurately as she went, right? Trying to make no mistakes. And she came down to Canada, and in her hyper-focused state, she said Canada. And on air, she laughed at herself, said, that's not Canada, that's Canada, and moved on. When she came off air, the producer said, do not ever do that again. If you make a mistake on air, you don't admit it, you pretend it didn't happen. And this was an authentic moment, one of many in Oprah's career where she went, disagree. That doesn't make sense to me because I'm a person and they're people and I just made a mistake and they know it. Like everyone listening knows I mispronounced Canada. So why would I pretend I didn't? And in that moment, Oprah was being Oprah by creating a space where humans are allowed to be human. They're allowed to be flawed. They're allowed to show up with their inclusions and they can connect in that space. And in hindsight, we see the scope of her career and we think, yeah, well, that's what Oprah does. That's Oprah being authentic. But think about the pressure that was on her when she was young, not to be that way, to conform with everybody else and to pretend to be perfect. And when we talk about authenticity, that's this complicated space where somehow if it's this original version, we're supposed to be this perfect lab created version of ourselves, but that erases all of our inclusions. It doesn't bring with it our intrinsic values. And it implies that these other people know better what we can be great at, what we can enjoy doing, and how we can connect with other humans. Because what she ultimately did was made her own authentic decision over and over again and created a space that other people resonated with. Because they must have been feeling like nobody in the space was creating that. So they rushed to her. So she created a market for herself by making those authentic decisions along the way. So what we've got so far is that you want to know your own value. And hopefully I've laid a little bit of texture for you to grab a pen and paper and jot some of these things down. Your intrinsic value, every room you enter, what do you bring with you? What shines brighter? What multiplies in your presence? For some people, it's laughter. Other people, it's, all kinds of things. There's a long list. Know what intrinsic values you have. Own your inclusions and see those as positive attributes, okay? Know that your life story is part of your beauty and is part of the value that you bring, and also know your values. So Oprah knew that it was important to her that people could be real, just real enough, right? Like if I make a mistake, we can all admit that that just happened, right? That was a value she was holding. And that's a really important part of what she chose to do. So the first brick here in building this authenticity to power your business is to get familiar with yourself, to actually get familiar with knowing what you feel your value is. And keep in mind, you're the only qualified judge. Nobody out there can tell you what the most valuable parts of you are. They only know what they felt while interacting with you. And when other people feel a resounding reaction from interacting with you, that's the value they got from you. They don't get to turn around and say that's your value. Only you can decide what your actual value is and what your actual values are. All right. And bring your imperfections, bring your humanity, raise your own value, own this stuff, define it for yourself. And this is a space I step into with my clients. So I want you to know that everyone on the call, as you start to explore your own value, could struggle a little bit. You really could feel, this is harder than I kind of thought it would be. I'm not sure how all of this plays out. Maybe you're uncomfortable, maybe you're stuck, maybe you're having just a real world experience trying to look at knowing your value and knowing your values. Because I am not implying that because it fits simply in some black and white words on a page that it will be an obvious experience for you. So what you're all going to get the opportunity to do is jump on the phone with me and do a free session so that I can support you in those moments, because that's what I do. I show up and I support, and that I can be there with you and actually take this work off of the call and make sure that it resonates in your real lives. Okay. So as we go beyond this, know that anything you're having trouble with or struggling with, or, strikes fear in you, any of those things, there'll be a link dropped in the chat where you can jump on my calendar. I'll call you on the phone and I'll be there to support you in that. All right. Glennon Doyle is the first author of note today. And if you're familiar with the book Untamed, then you probably know that she is one of the most raw and real, imperfect specimens of a human that's ever been published in front of us. What she does is shows us how to find the value in our inclusions, how to find the value in our imperfections, in our individual story, and into what multiplies in our presence. Writing is how she multiplies the good in the world. Through her simplicity of words, she ends up bringing more into people's lives. And if you aren't familiar with her, she writes memoirs. So this is Untamed is the third of her memoirs. And it is about the point in her life where she had already tried to repair her marriage to her husband after his infidelity. And at this point, she had met her future wife and decided to leave him to marry her. So she really embodies those moments, those authentic decision moments where other people are going to tell you you're doing the wrong thing. And she anecdotally lays out guidance on how to navigate these moments in very simplistic terms. So if you're looking for something to help you know yourself and know your value, reach for Untamed. It's phenomenal. And I'm just going to tell you a little snippet out of the book that we can apply to the talk today. She has kids. So her middle child was talking about her older child and saying, he wants me to join the clubs that he was in school. And I don't want to, right? And so Glennon says, well, then don't. And her daughter says, but I don't want to disappoint him. And then Glennon writes in glorious fashion, when you come across opportunities in life to decide between disappointing yourself and disappointing someone else, always disappoint them. It is your job not to disappoint yourself. And I think that that is a really powerful, simple anecdote for how to make authentic decisions in real tiny moments along the way that add up into an authentic life. And they close that passage by her daughter saying, well, what if it's you? And Glennon says, especially if it's me. Those people closest to us are the space that we most need to hold our authenticity and not get wrapped up in their view of us, their version of us, their expectation of us, all those external things. So to dive more into knowing yourself, your values, and how to derive that into a life, reach for the book Untamed. Her other books are excellent too. So this brings us to alignment, because we need to allow our life to align with ourselves. Now think about that for a second. It sounds weird all of a sudden to say that you and your life cannot be aligned, but think about a car. It's got a steering wheel, it's got tires, they're connected, but they could be fighting. They could really be fighting, and you could have to put a lot of energy into bringing them back to straight. And when our life is out of alignment, when we're not really allowing things to go in the same direction, it creates friction. It creates a lot of energy wasted in tug of war between two things. And that's where a lot of frustration comes in business ownership. That's where a lot of energy is lost. When people feel unmotivated, they feel they've lost their purpose. They just don't know why they even started this anymore. What you tend to see is that they're out of alignment. And others will resonate with you more powerfully when you're in alignment, because you'll make more sense to them, right? It all just adds up. It all seems obvious. And so you want to allow your life to move into alignment with you. Now think about how I phrased that. Your life wants to be in alignment with you. There is energy in your life trying to make sense. And when we're out of alignment, we tend to be the one causing the misalignment. So it's me saying, I actually want to open this dance studio. Like I want a professional dance floor and mirrors, and I want a professional environment. And somebody else says, no, that's too much overhead. If I move away from what I think and towards what they think, I've now created misalignment. And that's a very oversimplified example, but there's a million ways to look at when our life is out of alignment with ourselves, with our intrinsic values, with what we want to see in our life and our world, and we're not acting in accordance with it. And I would say the majority of my coaching lives in that space, helping people bring their life into alignment with themselves, knowing themselves well enough, knowing their values well enough, and then support on clarifying the decisions, making the decisions, and following through on the decisions to bring it into alignment. And magic happens when you do. So when you are living in alignment, things are easier. And I know that sounds oversimplified, but it's just like when the car gets aligned and you don't have to fight the tires anymore. They're not, it's not trying to go a different direction than you want to go. Because when things are aligned with your own honesty, they make a lot more sense. So you have to allow that to happen and stop resisting. That's the important part. So if you're observing in yourself, well, gosh, I really would rather do this, and you're entertaining those counterpoints instead of just saying, I already know what I want to do. Now, logic still applies. We still have to have strategic plans and follow some rules in life, but that's where the friction exists. All right. So this brings us to the second author of the day, Brené Brown. And this quote is one of my favorites. Authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, and the choice to let our true selves be seen. So just a check-in moment here with everything I've said so far, and now reading this quote. Are you guys on board? Does this make sense? Yeah? So think about what she's putting forward here. What she's saying is authenticity is a practice. It is not a label we earn that an outside person gives to us. We don't just be authentic and we're done. That's overly simplified. Authenticity is a collection of choices. It's a practice. It's a choice to know yourself, know your values, and choose them. If you know Brené, that you know that in her career, she shows up in jeans. She swears when she talks. And if you try to hire her for a speaking engagement, which many people do, and you try to put in that contract that she has to wear a suit and she can't swear, she will not take the job. She's making choices every day that align with her truth and how she shows up valuable, because she feels that she's more valuable. Her intrinsic value is higher when she can connect with people in a real way. And for her, that means not editing her speech and not dressing in a way that you want her to. She's going to show up dressing as she is, and she's going to speak as she does, and she's going to connect with more humans that way. So basically what she hears when someone wants to edit her down to a different version of herself to fit their box is, you actually don't want to resonate with me. You want to move me out of alignment with myself. And that's going to be a lesser version of me. So it's really not worth my time or yours, because it doesn't sound like you want me. You might want the message I carry, but you might need it from a different messenger. So I'll do you a favor and not take the gig. And that's a really strong example of how to show up and be real, and to make the choice to be honest with yourself, because she's owning her own value and taking responsibility for bringing it into all the spaces she is in and living in alignment. You know how much easier her life is not getting up on those stages and trying to pretend she's someone that she's not? Think of how much friction she's alleviated there, right? That's what I meant when I started today. Being invited here to actually be myself, because the people that invited me know me, that means I'm actually allowed to show up as I am. That's a beautiful feeling, and we all deserve that. And we're the only ones that know when someone's asking us to be something we're not, and when someone's asking us to be exactly who we are. And we get to decide in those choices if we're going to move into those spaces or just let them pass by so that more opportunities can arrive. This brings us to business. So I'm checking my time here. So CVS is probably the biggest current brand in the last few decades to make a massive alignment decision. So if you're not familiar, CVS decided to stop selling tobacco products. They stopped selling cigarettes. And your first thought is, gosh, I wonder how much of the money they're making was from cigarettes. It was $20 billion. $20 billion in revenue was coming from the sale of cigarettes. But this is an example of everything I've said so far and how it applies to a big corporate brand. And then we'll dial it down to more personal brands, but a big corporate brand. They said, this is out of alignment. This doesn't make sense that we're a health company that we're trying to be a health company, that we're saying that we're a health company, but when you go to pay, you're seeing something that is out of alignment with my view, with CVS's view of health. And they had to make a choice. Please these shareholders who didn't want them to give up that 20 billion, or choose to move into alignment with their own values. So in that, this brand, this company knew who they chose to be, knew who they were, knew what their intrinsic value was health, supporting health, and saw the misalignment and decided to move into alignment, even when that meant to let money flow away, just like Brene does when she passes up a speaking gig. She lets money flow away, the money that doesn't resonate with her, the money that doesn't show up wanting her to be who she is. And CVS is saying, we want people to believe us when we say we're here for their health. We want them to believe that. And so we're going to make choices that send signals that make it clear that it's true. So what they're doing is showing up authentically by giving you that feeling of honesty and letting you see who they actually are. Now, I couldn't find any articles to say that they recouped that 20 billion, which is interesting to me. It wasn't, and then our sale of something else went up 20 billion. It wasn't. They felt that the value of the people that choose them made up the difference. And they haven't regretted it from what I saw. I looked at Forbes and a few other articles. And instead, they said that people are choosing them to support them because they agree with the mission. So they're saying that they're seeing greater sales, not 20 billion more, I'm not pretending it's equal, but they're seeing more customer retention. They're seeing more customer loyalty. And when people have a choice between brands, which in every line of business, they do, they're going to choose the one that aligns with their life and their values because it feels better to them. So if you're just picking up, a tablet of paper, you can go to a million different places. That doesn't even have to do with health, but that means the people that are aware of the decision they've made are choosing them because they can align with it. And what I mean by let your life align with you is that when you make these choices, the external world aligns also. And new energy comes to you because there's energy out there that's looking to resonate with health, looking to resonate with your intrinsic values and what you're putting out. And if you're not signaling to them, hey, I'm right here, this is what I do, this is who I am, they can't find you and they can't choose you. And when you do show up and say, I've made hard choices that may or may not have been financially beneficial, but I'm pretty cool with them. Like I'm pretty comfortable saying what's more important to me is this brand and this space. And when you make those decisions, your customer base notices. So with you and your business, you're going to honor your perspective that you are larger than your business, right? CVS said there's something bigger than the exchange of money for consumer products, and it's who we are. They said they're bigger than that. Now, this can be really hard to do at a personal brand level because it feels like I'm a person who has this business and this business has to survive for me to survive. Therefore, the business trumps all. I have to feed that beast. I have to make that work. I have to honor the business. And businesses are driven by very different things than people. To boil it down very simply, businesses need cash flow. Businesses need revenue. That's what they need. So it can be tempting to think that whatever's in the best interest of the revenue of your business is in your best interest. But I think that's flipped. I think that when you honor that you are bigger than the business, you're a person who owns a business, and that business fits into your authentic life. And it must fit into your authentic life. And when it does fit into your authentic life, and when it aligns, your business will have access to energy and power that it didn't before because of a lot of resonant reasons. So honoring your perspective that you are larger than your business is the next step, right? So we know our value, we know our values, we're making decisions that align with that, and that's flowing down to our business, not up. When your business fits in your life, you're going to feel like you can show up as your whole person, and you don't have to leave a part of yourself at the door to make a sale, right? Brene is a person who owns her career. Her career does not own her and tell her who she is or what she does. And that is incredibly powerful because it helps her resonate with the right people. CVS can resonate with the right people. I'm going to keep following that story. I'm very curious, if that's something we're going to not see other brands do, but the long game there. I'm very curious because we don't see it very often. So you are bigger than your business. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah. Okay. So when you get to that intersection where you have to decide, is it right for my business or is it right for me? There is no choice. You do what's right for you. And if it's right for you and also right for your business, then you can move that direction. If it's right for your business, but not for you, you're inviting friction into your life. You're inviting more resistance, more misalignment. Things are going to be harder, more frustrating, not going to flow as well for your customer, lower customer retention, ultimately lower ROI, and I'll get to that. But you want to ask yourself first, does this make sense for me? And then, does it make sense for the business? All right, so back to jewelry. It's just some anecdotes from my personal life that I think really show you how your customer base resonates with you being yourself first and owning the business second. So I worked at 2 different jewelry stores. When I was in high school, I worked at one in Cleveland. And when I was in college, I worked at one in Columbus, Ohio. They were both family owned. So I got to know the owners of both establishments. And oh, how different they were. The Cleveland owner, I worked here first, had this very strong rule that he did not sell jewelry for mistresses. And I was young, you know, like 16, 17, 18. I was like, what? Huh? Like, okay, very confused. He was a family man. His dad worked there. I worked with his father. I worked with his kids. I worked with his wife. And I just thought he just doesn't want it around his family. But I was wrong. He didn't want it in his life. It was not resonating with him. And I thought, is this such a big thing in jewelry? And then I went to Columbus. And in Columbus, we had one of those moments where one of the owners intended a voicemail for not his wife that went to everybody's voicemail in the company. And nobody flinched. Like, this was an open secret. Like, everybody knew that the owners had more things going on. And my job at this company, guys, I worked behind the desk. I did lots of paperwork and lots of transactions and things. It was part of my job to keep the mistress's accounts separate from the wives. I had to know the code names, the fake names. I had to treat the mistresses like royalty and treat the wives like I knew nothing. And this was part of my job. And that's when I realized while I was in business school that these are streams of revenue for jewelry stores, that you either decide you want that money or you decide you don't want that money. And that the Cleveland owner had decided, I don't want that money. It doesn't resonate with me and I don't resonate with it. And I'll tell you what, his customers were family people. And it was beautiful and it was a great experience because I resonated with it. The mistresses that I had the honor of having to bow down to was very complicated for me. It was out of alignment with how I show up and who I am. And then I knew the wives too. And I had a lot of friction. I had a lot of lost sleep. I had a lot of like, is this okay? Like, is this right? Do I need to like wave a flag and do something? And you know what? The owners of the business that were bigger than the business, because they always are in their lives, this was in alignment with them. They were so content with all of it. They had no friction. They were living completely in alignment. And in every market, we all get to take our seat at the table in our industry. And at that seat, when we say who we are, when we say our own version of I do it this way or I do it that way, I do it in alignment with myself, the customers who are looking for that will find us. Because the customers that wanted a family jeweler, meaning not to be party to everything that you could see in the open air, chose the Cleveland store. And the customer base at the Columbus store came there because their friends told them that's where you go. They take care of everything for you. So your referrals, your resonant marketing is going to go farther and return you more on the dollars when you're saying who you actually are, being who you actually are. People are feeling that honesty from you, and then they're telling others, go there, that's our people, that's our place. So when you're not showing up as who you actually are, nobody can resonate with you. Nobody. Your people can't find you. You can't find the stream of revenue that's meant for you. And therefore, you're missing out on all of it. I'm not telling you how to show up. I'm not telling you which jewelry store was right or wrong, or whether CVS should be making that 20 billion or not. I'm just giving you examples of the choices that are made along the way and how they resonate out with honesty and business. So that brings us to the third author of the day. Simon Sinek, one of, I think, everybody's favorites. He's a powerhouse, talks about trust. And it really applies in those family jewelry scenarios, because what are we trusting? What is honest? The men who had multiple women to buy jewelry for trusted the one jewelry store to show up for them in that way. And the other jewelry stores customers trusted that this was what their version of a safe place. And what Simon says, it's funny, what Simon Sinek says is that if you break that trust, your brand quality plummets. He uses the example of Tiger Woods being branded as a family man, and then the news saying otherwise. And the problem was not any behavior that Tiger Woods engaged in. The problem was that Tiger promised us he was a family man. And then what we felt is lied to. We felt lied to. And what I love that he says is, if he had wanted to be the bad boy of golf, we would have been fine with that. We would have been absolutely fine with him showing up as his honest self. But I have more questions than where Simon leaves it. My question is, he was famous from such a young age. Did he have a chance to know who he was? Or did other people tell him? Did we brand him as a family man because his father was always standing next to him? Is that what we put on him and he didn't shake it off? Was money coming from it because the image preceded him and his brand got bigger than him? I don't know. I'm not a qualified judge. I know nothing about the man, right? But think about what happens when you brand yourself one way and you're working really hard to be that way, and then the industry feels it as dishonest. You lose your assets. You lose the intangible assets that you've built, because when people don't trust a brand, it's really over. And they're not, we don't mean trust you to deliver your products on time. We mean, are you who you say you are? Is that brand who they say that they are? And at the local level, that resonates. So this quote pulls it all together. Every decision we make in our lives is a piece of communication. It's our way of saying something about who we are and what we believe. This is why authenticity matters. This is why you have to say and do the things you actually believe. Because the things you say and do are symbols of who you are. And when we send those signals and we send those symbols, we're communicating to everyone around us. And when we do that in misalignment, it's very expensive to run our business, because we are working harder to get our marketing dollars to resonate. And we are working harder to get our customers to stay loyal. And we are working harder to find our people, because they can't find us because they don't know who we are. And when you communicate these things clearly by making continual decisions that honor that you are bigger than the brand and that you get to decide that things are in alignment with you, your people can find you, your marketing dollars resonate more, and the people feel you've been honest, and they don't feel like they've been deceived. They feel like they've experienced truth instead of fiction. And here's how I see it playing out in business time and time again. People that bring all of this authenticity to their business decisions, their life and their brand, and how they interact with their customers have higher ROI. They have more energy. They know their sense of purpose. They know why they're there and what they're doing, and it's all working out. They have higher resonance with all of their messages. Their customers engage more on all their social media. Their customers stop by and say hi. Their customers have a deeper connection with them than just the transaction. They get more referrals. They have higher loyalty. They have higher retention. And think about all the money you're putting into building your business, running your business, and branding your business. And if you could have more energy, even of yourself, as the greatest asset in your company, if you could sleep better, wake up more energized, be more excited to do the work, you would be more efficient. You would put out more efficient work. If your marketing did the same thing, it knew its purpose, it resonated with its people. If your interactions with the customers did the same thing, when I meet people, they meet me. I am going to be that same person every time. So if they want to work with me, they know where to find me. If they don't, there's a million other coaches. But when I meet the people that meet me and they come back, they know what they're getting. I get much higher retention because they got exactly what they thought they were going to get, right? Their choice is a better choice because they knew what they were buying. So you get more return on all of your assets, both, your financial assets, your energy, your marketing dollars, your longevity, and the referral base, just by saying this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. And I'm going to make those hard little decisions along the way to align with myself instead of some external force that's pushing me or pulling me, that are hard to make. And they're hard to stand up for yourself. I'm sure it was, I would love to have been in the room when CVS told their shareholders they weren't going to sell cigarettes. Like, that would be a microcosm I'd be interested in looking into. These are hard moments, right? And when we go the inauthentic way, when we let everything outside tell us what's right, we end up putting two marketing messages out that they don't have the same soul, they don't have the same vibe, they don't really resonate. Our energy is drained because of all the friction in our business, trying to do something we don't feel really great about. I mean, Brene probably would have been much more stressed about a speaking engagement if she was stressed about making sure she didn't swear, or having to show up in clothes she didn't feel comfortable in, right? When we lack that purpose, that underall purpose of my life trumps my business, and I have a greater vision here that the business is a piece of, when we lack that, we're not exactly sure why we're supposed to do all this work, higher frustration. And as I think you've heard me say, customers engage less. They don't stay as long. They're looking for their tribe, and you're not it because you aren't a tribe. You're just a transaction. So they're going to keep moving. The referrals are going to go somewhere else because they're not going to refer you because you're a commodity. They're going to refer you because of who you are and what you do. And when there's purpose and intention and resonance behind that, they're going to refer the right people to you. And then those people are going to become loyal. So that brings us to the end of the structured material. How did we do? Do you guys feel like there were parts I need to clarify, or do you have questions, or anybody want to just raise the point that we can talk about for a second?
Sara, the chat has been off the hook. Everybody's engaged.
Yeah.
Sara, I had a moment when I started selling insurance that I just keep thinking about every time every story you kind of go into, I keep remembering this moment in insurance. And it was the moment that gave me the confidence to be able to go forward as a salesperson. When I first started, I had told my manager I wanted to have my photo on my business card because I kept seeing people who had their photos on their business card. And like, every time I would reach for cards, I went for one with a photo, and I was like, that's what people are grabbing. Like, I want that on mine. And my hair was purple. And I said, but I got to go and get my hair dyed so that it's fresh, because I can't look like this. And he said, well, you can't have purple hair on the photo if you're going to put it on your card. And I was like, well, why not? This is what I'm going to look like when I show up at the event. And he said, what if people don't buy insurance from you? And my response was, Mark, those aren't my people. I would rather they didn't talk to me and waste my time. And so he let me do it. And the following year, Liberty Mutual came out with marketing materials that had a girl with blue hair on the cover. And I was like, this is rocking. But it was just really cool the way he supported me in trying to be my authentic self. And then the way that turned into me having the confidence to move forward as a salesperson who was representing myself.
You nailed it. I mean, those are the actual little decisions that we have to make along the way in the face of adversity. When someone says no, and we actually have to decide, I'm going to stick with yes, because it's a yes for me. If it's a no for you, we have to figure that out. But
I love the phrase, it's a yes for me.
Totally. That's perfect, Jackie. I had way too much material. I was texting people before saying, I think I wrote a college course and not a 1-hour talk. Like, you guys should have seen me trying to pare down the slides because I love this. I think it's huge. I think it's important. And I had a million examples, and I had, so much material because this is real. This is stuff that we engage with every single day. And that it really is a part of running our businesses. Anybody else have anything they want to bring forwards or ask a question? Clarify? Is I confusing it all?
Rachel had something she's sharing in the chat here. I hate when someone tells me something I want to do is a bad decision, but it feels so empowering when you ignore them and do what you think is best. And Sara, to your examples, I mean, that's how you've led your life and your career, and you inspire all of us to do the same.
And not all of them work out, right? So I remember it was actually an ex-boyfriend that I was telling that I was interested in Ava. It's hard to call it dating when it was through the internet, but I think it was our dating, right? And he said, well, I mean, why? I remember telling him, well, because I have to live the rest of my life not knowing if this was the universe trying to bring me my person. Like, I don't know if it's going to work out, but I'm going to know that it wasn't me that said no. So that's where that came from, Jackie. I said, it's a yes from me. Like, if this is my person, I'm saying yes. If the universe is going to tell me no, that's fine. Because I'm going to be able to sleep at night knowing I wasn't the one who didn't take the chance, take the risk on what if this is my person. Because there's that knowing inside. Glenn's book is all built on the concept of your own knowing, your own wisdom. I call it brilliance in my coaching, seeing the brilliance in my clients, seeing them, right? Like, there was a knowing in me, like, okay, but this might be my person. So am I just supposed to not find out because you don't understand? Like, you don't think it makes sense? Well, I'd like to find out, and I don't really care what other people think along the way. And I think that's a large reason that we didn't have a big wedding, because we didn't really care what anybody else thought. Like, it didn't matter. That's not how our relationship had developed, or the space it lived in, or any of that.
I think it's really easy to be paralyzed by fear, both in your life and in your business, when you're hearing all of the things that people tell you could go wrong about the decisions that you think are right for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
You're
yeah,
right.
there's really some power in just kind of going with what you know.
You know, their information might be right for them. I'm not walking around telling everybody, look for spouses on the internet overseas. Like, that's not a path other people should take.
Mistresses.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say your wedding story reminded me of, like, I used to think, I just remember thinking, like, remember when everyone had class rings? I don't know if they still do that. Like,
I don't know.
I remember I was always, I guess I thought I was unique, but I wanted to be normal. Like, I'm like, what am I supposed to get? What is it supposed to say? And I look back, and that was like an example of me not being my authentic self. But then I look at my wedding, I fast forward however many years that was. And, you know, we had our wedding on a boat. It was unique. And I got my wife a pretty unique wedding ring. I started to kind of, this is what I like, you know, this is what we like. So I think your stories are really great, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for saying that, because I was a little nervous about it. I'm like, this isn't what people are coming for, right? My wedding pictures? I don't know. I'm just going with it.
You kind of cheated. You cheated. That was the easiest wedding.
Oh,
right?
it was. But that was not lost on me. That was not,
No.
budget was a factor. It was.
You know, I wanted to add something too, like in business, I do team building workshops for companies and communication workshops. And when I was first starting, you know, you feel that if you're buying, I'm selling, I'll take it. Like, and I realized I want to do workshops for people that I want to help, not people that I don't particularly like. And when you go out networking, you meet some people who say some things that are not aligned with my values at all. And then they'll say, oh, here's my card, we should talk. And I'm like, I don't want to sit in a room with your team. Like, and to be able to say, like, that it's not going to be a good workshop. My heart will not be in it. And, you know, it's empowering to say, even if I need work right now, I'm not going there. You know, I'm not going to help an organization that I don't like what they stand for, or a person who's telling me things that I don't agree with. You know, especially there's so many hot issues now that people feel comfortable just spouting out about. And it really, you know, part of being authentic, I think, is deciding who you want your customers to be and not saying they'll be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's when you hit those right relationships in your business, it's such a great feeling in your work to be working with people that you know, love, and trust, not just that know, love, and trust you, but, you know, you genuinely want your customers to be happy. You know, there's genuine connection there.
Connection, right? Because the people are bigger than the brand, the business, the transaction, all of that. Totally hear that.
One thing that was a transition for me, that authenticity piece, and who do I want to work with? As a marketer, I take that very personally, just because I'm like, we've all had bad experiences with businesses. Not every business is created equal, but everyone's trying to, you know, make their business succeed. Some people that's working with the right people, some people that's just making the money. And I've sat across business owners where I'm like, yes, I absolutely want to help you grow. I cannot wait to help you with these goals. And there are other business owners I've sat across the table from and been like, I have no interest in inflicting you on the general populace by improving your marketing. And to Heidi's point, you have to be at a certain point where like you've recognized no. And that was a very powerful place to get to. So thank you for quantifying what that was and being the authenticity piece that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've all had these moments. We've all made these decisions, and we've made them both ways because we're all an entire person, right? Nobody's coming here with a clean slate. And so we know what it felt like when we said yes to something that was out of alignment with ourselves, and we know what it felt like when we said no to it. And one of the ways that Simon Sinek, or no, I think it's Jordan Peterson, quantifies it is when you think the thought, when you say the words, do you feel powerful or weak? When you move into the space, if you feel a weakness come across you, it's not your space. Keep moving. But if you feel a power come across you, then you're in your authenticity. That's Jordan Peterson. It's a lecture he gives. It's phenomenal. And the Simon Sinek stuff comes out of a 30-minute talk on 99 Adobe, where he was talking about logos. Great talks. You can Google authenticity and get a lot of information that feels like you're supposed to sense it. And I really did want to make it more practical than that, because there really is practical applications. Well, host team, I don't know what, I lost track of time.
No worries. We're doing great on time, and we have a little bit of extra. And what I was thinking is, we did get to have some fun dialogue here in the afterwards. What I'd like to do, if you guys are all okay with it, is I'm going to go ahead and wrap up with our closing information so that we can do that. I want to make sure that our giveaways get out there, because Sara put some thought into that, and it's really going to be exciting. And then if y'all want to stay on for a little while and you're booked till 1:30 and keep chatting, I think that's fine. Are we good with that?
With the free session, guys, I've been doing this long enough to know that people have reactions to me. They either have things that boil up that are good and they need a place to put it, or they have complications that boil up and they need someone to talk to about it. And that is one of the reasons that the free session is there. So if you're feeling like, what do you mean it's over? Or what do I do with this? Just jump on my calendar and book me. Okay. It's free. It's no obligation. I don't do hard sales. You want to meet me again, or that's the end. Like, so go ahead and use that space. Okay. And if you have any other questions, any other follow-up, use that space for it. There's just a simple link and you can book me through it. All right. Okay, Jackie.
Awesome. No, that was perfect. Thank you all so much for coming. And Sara, thank you so much for showing up as yourself and doing what you've done for so many of us that already work with you, which is just really bring out some things for us to think about and consider in the way that we're doing business and living our life that will benefit us in every aspect. Like I really, being someone who does work with Sara personally, I get a little emotional when I see her do these talks, because when she's talking about authenticity, I mean, she just really is the most authentic person I've ever met. And she really does help other people find that in themselves. So if it's ever something you've struggled with, or, know someone who struggles with, I just really think that she's such an amazing connection to be able to help us figure that out in our business and personal lives. The Calendly link that Sara mentioned, and I can't say that word, but you all know what it is. It's in the chat. Grab it now. She's going to be filling up quick, I'd imagine. I luckily booked mine yesterday. But get that, save it. You can just kind of click on it and have a window open and leave it in the background. And then for anyone who enjoyed today's programming and you think you might want to attend more resource events or more Plexus events, the way to do that for free is to become a resource member. So before our next event, if you go to the link that we're going to drop in the chat here and use the promo code MULTI, M-U-L-T-I, then they will take the $10 that you paid for today's event. They will apply that to your $100 membership. And for the whole rest of the year, you can attend any of the free Plexus programming or any of the free resource programming without any additional cost. And there's just such amazing opportunities through both of the, both branches of that organization for networking and just like socializing and different connections that you can make in the area. So please check that out. And then we do have our next event on the calendar. It's going to be Pronouns 101. So Amanda was talking a little bit about the, he, she, they pronouns at the beginning. We're going to dive a little bit into why that like how and why to use your pronouns to be an ally, and what that does in presentation for other people, and just kind of how that can help help others become their authentic self by having you support in that way. So lots of opportunity there. And then another thing I wanted to call out is just the Plexus pour overs are an amazing way to just kind of get introduced to Plexus. So on the calendar link that is in the chat also, if you look at the next pour over, that's going to be Friday, March 4th, 9 a.m. on Zoom. You just show up with whatever you're drinking that morning. It's not always coffee. No, I'm kidding. But show up with whatever you've got in your cup that morning. Enjoy a fun chat, get to know some people, some Plexus members. That's led by the executive director, Amanda Cole, who introduced everything today. And she's just wonderful to work with, just like Sara is. So with that all said, a quick thank you again to Sara. Thank you again to Courtney. And I'm going to hand it off to Dan to do our giveaways. And then anyone who wants to hang out and continue to network and chat, feel free.